Hello, everybody. My name is Shweta Sagar. I am the author of He Who Finds a Wife, and you are listening to Real Conversations with Sheeta and Nikki, and I am today's featured guest. Now, let's get into it.
Lunch breaks, outtakes, we know how to vibe. Interviews, twos, latest news. Read your comments too. What are you thinking? Ooh, have lunch with us too. Conversations with you. Real conversations with Sheeta and Nikki. Real conversations with Sheeta and Nikki. Yeah. Real conversations with Sheeta.
All right, y'all. So, welcome back to another episode of Real Conversations with Sheeta
And Nikki.
And today we have another amazing featured guest. She is a book author, Miss Shweta Sagar. She is the author of He Who Finds a Wife. This book is about building a relationship with God as you prepare for marriage and making wise choices while dating. It highlights common deceptions and thoughts single people may have that possibly derails them from God's vision.
Yes, Shweta shares her story of hope and healing as she builds a close relationship with God. Please welcome author Shweta Saga to the show. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Rashida and
Yes,
Nikki. Thank you.
yes. So we are excited. So, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So, my name is Shweta Sagar. I am originally from the country of India, and I moved here about 14, 15 years ago. And I
Mhm.
have been here ever since. I currently live in the Detroit area in Michigan, and I'm an engineer by profession. I also lead the young adult ministry in my church and part of a prophetic ministry. And so I juggle work, ministry, life, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Man, you got your hands full, sounds like. So,
I do. And then God keeps giving me books to write, so
Oh,
I keep
wow.
busy with that.
yes, that's amazing. So, tell us a little bit about your book. What's the meat and potatoes of the book? How did you come about writing this book?
Yeah, so to give a little backstory, I when I was 16 years old, I remember reading a book. I was in India. I was just, I think, in high school, and I read a book about the blueprint for a family, just what the role of a family is, parents and children, and what what's God got to do with marriage, right? And
Yeah.
when I was reading it, I specifically read this piece about premarital sex. And I remember when I read it, it said that if anyone engages in premarital sex, they don't really get to enjoy the full glory of what God created sex for within a marriage.
Mhm.
And as a
Mhm.
16-year-old, when I read that, I vowed to God, I said, God, I want to preserve my body for you, for holiness. And why not just limit it to my body? I want to even save my heart and my mind for the man that you have chosen for me. And,
Mhm.
you know, ladies, it's so difficult, right? With all of the
Yeah.
people that we come across, there are some very fancy, shiny men out there that we
Mhm.
get tempted to, we want to get to know. But making that vow, I've seen how God has walked with me through that journey of pursuing holiness through Christ. And when I was, I think, I don't remember how old I was, but in 2014, I was almost engaged to a man. And one of the things, like to the very last minute, one of the things that came in the way was money. Like he was a greedy man. Wow, I
Mhm.
think that's the first time I said it. Like he was greedy and arrogant. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, this is kind of going, let's go with the flow. And was just very passive. I went
Mhm.
along with it. But then finally, God came through and,
Mhm.
like his true colors came out in front of my family. And then we were like, all right, this is not the person for you. And,
Mhm.
And I started to think about how many deceptive things there are in people, and
Mhm.
how there's so many things. Like, how do you choose the right person for yourself? Like, how do you go about it? And that's
Mhm.
when God started revealing to me about so many times that I escaped people, like people who
Mhm.
had bad principles, didn't have the same vision as me, were not really good character. And you can't really tell a person's character when you look at
Right.
them straight to their
Yeah.
face, but God knows the
Right.
Yeah.
heart. And I saw the answers through dreams sometimes. Sometimes I would just hear God say it, hear a voice in my heart that would say it. And that's when I was like, okay, God, like this is a problem. And I'm pretty sure a lot of women go through the same thing. And
Yeah.
and I felt God say, write your story. I have prepared you for
Mhm.
this. And that's when I felt, okay, I got to write a book about this. And this was about
Yeah.
6 years ago. I started writing it. And with a
Mm.
full time job, it's so difficult. But I just pressed on. Some days I would write a little bit, get really
Mhm.
emotional, go cry about it for days. And I was like, no, I don't want to
Mhm.
go there, because if I go there, it hurts. God, like just remembering that
Yeah.
memory, bringing that up and feeling that
Mhm.
feeling again. And every time I will
Mhm.
feel there was someone else out there feeling that exact same thing. And I
Mhm.
can be the voice that can come in and say, like, hey, it's okay. There's somebody else who went through this before you, and you are not alone. And God knows this feeling very well, and He knows the solution, the answer to it. So that's
Yeah.
how this book came about.
Mm.
Wow.
So what exactly was it that you were feeling? Was it like loneliness? Was it depression? Was it just a little bit of both, or what was it?
I think the main things for me was loneliness, depression, and confidence, like not feeling confident enough, feeling like something's wrong with me. Why
Mm.
is it that I'm going through these rejections? And the fear of rejection, that is a big ticket
Mhm.
item. Fear of
Yeah.
rejection, we all carry it. And before somebody can reject us, we reject them because we're so afraid of getting hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. That's deep. Yeah, I think that that's one thing that we've all pretty much struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times when you tell these men that you're on a road of celibacy, they're not trying to hear it, or they'll try to play that game with you as
Mm-hmm.
though, oh, okay, that's fine, when really they know that their intentions is something else.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I can tell you, there are guys who will even tell you they love Jesus just so they can sleep with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that is so true.
Yeah. That's why it is so important to make sure you have a relationship with God yourself and know Him for yourself. Because, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's people out there that would just say that just
Hmm.
to get with you or,
Mm-hmm.
get in your bed or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it's important to always know God first because God, like you said, Swetha, God will reveal things to you and like in your dreams or, He'll speak to you and communicate with you in ways that only you would receive it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it is so important to even before you get into a relationship to just build a relationship with God first.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why I think your book is just so important, to really get out there and for more people to know about your book because a lot of people have the same struggles that you just expressed as well. So, you're not by yourself.
Hmm.
And sometimes people, like you said, they feel ashamed or, they
Yeah.
reject themselves before they allow someone else to, even say no or whatever.
Yeah.
So to have this book, I feel like it would give people that are having those struggles, give them that confidence
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
that they need to continue to be themselves and not be afraid to build that in relationship with God and just wait on God's timing.
Yes.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
sometimes waiting on His timing too can be it can mess with your confidence as well.
Mhm.
you
Tell me
know?
about it. Tell me about it. I think one of the biggest things I've heard from a lot of single friends of mine is, how long is this going to take? And a thought
Yeah.
that comes to all of them, and this is the same thought that runs through all their minds, is like, I need to perfect myself so that God can bless me with somebody. And that is
Mhm.
such a lie, because God has his time set. You just
Yeah.
haven't walked into that appointed time. And the enemy will play with your mind and give you all of these
Mhm.
ideas. One of the things I always teach my young adults is that the enemy is not that creative. He's going to play the
Mhm.
same tricks on every single person. The only
Right.
thing new about his tricks are the people he plays them on. So it's the same thing.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so important for us to be transparent, to open up to somebody we can trust and talk about it,
Mhm.
because we all go through the same things. And just to give an analogy, I think of Jane Goodall, the lady
Mhm.
who sat with gorillas and learned their behavior, and
Oh
she knows
yeah.
what
Mhm.
action means. The same way the enemy has watched us as the human race for
Mhm.
centuries. He knows
Yeah.
what triggers what, and he manipulates it. And it's
Yeah.
not the people to blame. Our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities of darkness that are manipulating people into behaving the way that they do and being ungodly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's deep. That's really deep.
Yeah. So what are some things I guess people can look for in your book?
I think my book is a book of encouragement.
Mhm.
I share my stories of how I have felt, how I have learned from my experiences. I am
Yeah.
transparent about my experiences, and I have written as much as I was allowed to write by the publisher. So some things we cannot
Wow.
mention, some people we cannot mention, but
Mm.
I said no. I'm going to put my story out there,
Mm.
and so that people can really learn. They're not alone, and all of the deceptions, I have a whole chapter about deceptions, right? Like how to
Mhm.
identify what's a roadblock. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of single women are, in the back of your mind, that you cannot be unequally yoked. But what does that look like? Like, what does that mean? Like, where? And they think, like, the same spiritual level, or this has to match and that has to match. But God knows the heart, and it's really about pursuing what the Bible says, but depending on God to show you the truth about a person. We can never tell
Mhm.
character or a person's heart, but God knows it. And through prayer, you can discover it.
Yeah.
I had a pastor read my book, and she said that this book is so good for teenagers because it helps them prepare even as young people who
Yeah.
have a desire to get married or find a partner later in life. It warns them about the dangers of being with somebody who's not equally yoked. And
Yeah.
really, we think that we can, our the good part of us can change the bad in somebody, but it's the
Right.
other way around. you know
Yeah.
the apostle Paul said bad company corrupts good morals, and that is so
Mhm.
true. So my book is about preserving what you have for the good of not only your life, but how your life can be a testimony to others, and how we can create a godly generation of people, leave a
Mhm.
legacy behind you. And if we started with our generation, it'll go from generation to generation. And
Right.
just imagine, we will have children of God living at peace, no heartbreak, no more sorrow. And I mean, we can have sorrow in different ways, but just
Mhm.
being secure people, having secure people who are content in their relationship, and then we can start a culture of holiness,
Mm.
just with our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree. It
Mm.
really starts from childhood,
Mm.
just
Hmm.
enforcing and instilling those beliefs as a child. And like you said, as you grow and you have
Mm.
children, you kind of they instill that in their children as
Mm.
well. And
Yes.
now you have a community of, believers that all have that same way of thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Swatha, did you, when you were growing up, did you grow up, in a religious household, or was it something that you were seeking and you kind of built that relationship with God on your own, or how did that come about?
So I was born in a Christian family. I went to church my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And this is unrelated to the book, but just a little bit about my spiritual journey. When I was 15 years old, I went into this web of depression, where
Mm-hmm.
I was just, there was no connection with my mind and my heart, and I was just this sad person. And in those days, I didn't really have, like, this idea to go to a counselor, nothing like that. Didn't know it. I would just cry myself to sleep every single night, because of just loneliness, because so I was raised by my mother. She's a single mother. My father walked out on us when I was 3 years old. So not
Mm-hmm.
having a father, knowing about God, but not knowing him personally as a father. And I didn't trust him as a man. I didn't trust him as a father. I mean, God is not really a man, but we call him a father. And just that whole angle of like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't want to go near him. Like, all right, I'll worship you from a distance. But,
Mm-hmm.
and I love you because you gave up your life for me, but can I
Yeah.
trust you? So during my years of depression, I was, it went on for 12 years. I was sad. I was suicidal a lot of times, but God preserved my life. And I would write poetry in those days, and my poetry would always end with hope. And I
Mm-hmm.
had hope that God would get me out of these situations someday. And at the end
Mm-hmm.
of those 12 years, I went to a women's conference, a 3-day conference where just I gave my life to Jesus completely. I was already born again at the age of 13. I accepted Jesus, but I was delivered from 12 years of depression in 3 minutes. And I stood up when I regained my strength. I was flat on the ground crying, and when I got up, I
Mm-hmm.
danced for the first time in my life, and I clapped till my hands were all red, and I had never clapped like that before. I was completely set free. So I was anointed by the Holy Spirit, and that day I knew that my life is not just for myself. I have to go
Yeah.
and share my experiences. Whatever I go through, I have to share it with people so that they don't go through the same things that I do. And even if there's someone in the same position as me, whether it's depression, whether it's loneliness, whether it's neglect, whether it's being raised by just a mother and no father, just fatherlessness. And I have seen how God has shown me that He is my father. And today I call myself a
Yeah.
daddy's girl. And my
Ah,
daddy is God Almighty. I call myself a
yeah.
daddy's girl, and I have no doubt about it, with just my
Mm.
story, just everything coming together. And since then, I've been in ministry. I just knew instantly after that 3-day conference, like I have to go out and make disciples of Jesus. And
Yeah.
it's been, I think, 11 years since then. I have been 11 years depression clean. Um,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and if you look at me, you can't see any trace of it. People were like, we wouldn't even guess that you were ever depressed, because I carry this joy, and I am so cheerful and goofy all the time. You can't tell I was ever depressed.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you came out of that because you have so much to give to
Mm-hmm.
others. So I'm happy to
Thank you.
hear that. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So what, I guess my question is, what would advice, or what kind of advice would you give someone that may be doubting God right now? Like they haven't been in a relationship maybe for a long time, and they want to get married, they want to have kids, but they're it's like at a standstill. They haven't been in a relationship. They might not be motivated to date, and maybe they're just in that state where they're just really doubting God. Like, what kind of advice would you give that person?
So I would tell that person that God makes your dreams come true. He's the only one who can make your dreams come true. He is the one, if you partner with him, you will see the light at the end of this tunnel. I know it feels long. Sometimes you feel like God is withholding something from you. That's not true. God wants you to come closer to him so that you can see the world through his eyes. And when you
Yeah.
start seeing the world through his eyes, you will start seeing the good in people whom you can trust, and you will have that discernment to be able to identify, like, hey, what's my future? What do you have for me? One of the things I write in my book is, you know if you have not received a promise or a dream or a vision about your future, about having a husband and having children, or having a wife and having children, having family, ask God for it. And he will give you. When I was very young, I don't remember, I had my first dream that I was married to a man. And I woke
Mhm.
up, I was a teenager then, and I'm like, what? That was such a uh weird dream. Did I like watch something inappropriate? Do you think that's a result of watching something inappropriate?
Mhm.
And but I've had dreams like that, and that's when I'm like,
Mhm.
you know what, my desire, girls, like, I'm gonna be open about this. My desire was always have a family because I didn't have one. I didn't have my
Mhm.
father. It was just my mother and me. I'm an only child, and I've always wanted a family, and that's been my deepest desire, to have a
Mhm.
whole unit, not a broken one. And I have given that to God. I have waited over 20 years for that dream to come to pass. But I know that it is going to happen. And I know
Mhm.
that God will not disappoint me because He makes dreams come true.
Mhm.
There is a verse in the Bible, I believe it's in Proverbs. I don't know the reference top of my head, but it says, God takes the lonely and sets them in families to be a happy mother of children. And that
Mhm.
is so true. He takes the lonely and puts them in families. And this is for men and women. And especially if there are any men listening to this, uh, I, I, I mentioned this even in my book. Like, men, you are called to go pursue your wife. Have the
Mhm.
courage and trust God,
Mhm.
and go without reservation. Go
Right.
forward without reservation. Find a woman, find out about her, and pursue her. And for the women, if somebody comes to you, don't have any restraint. Open yourself freely. N- Not your
Mhm.
body, just your heart and your mind, to
Mhm.
see that
Mhm.
person through God's eyes, right? Each one, men and
Mhm.
women, looking at each other with God's eyes, and with having a vision of family. I think a lot of people are waiting, 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 thinking that this man or woman is going to drop out of the sky. I think that's happened in the Bible for many people, but I think
Mhm.
that if we align our steps with God, that it will come. And you know what?
Yeah.
If there's any fear about, like, hey, I'm getting old, when will I have kids? As a Christian, my cutoff is 89 or 90, because that's when Abraham's wife had a baby. Like, this was not a woman who was like just recently menopause. She was like dried, like 40 years
Mhm.
past menopause. She was 90,
Mhm.
and I said, as a Christian, my cutoff is 90. So it's in God's
Mhm.
hands, and I
Yeah.
am not going to limit myself because I worship the same God, and
Yeah.
he doesn't change. So if it can happen for Sarah, it can happen for me. Even Isaac, for the men, Isaac was like 40 years old, and he was an only child. Okay, only being an only child, I relate to him. I can say that only children, it's kind of boring. It's kind of lonely because you don't have
Mhm.
siblings, you don't have anybody. You just gotta fight this whole
Mhm.
world alone. And being single, unmarried, it's hard. It definitely is hard.
Mhm.
But when Isaac saw Rebecca, he saw her from a distance, and he just fell in love with her. And
Mhm.
he was like, yeah, that's it, that's the woman that's come in front of my eyes, and I'm going to accept her the way that she is, and I'm going to love her. I'm not going to think about, like, oh, maybe there's some other woman out there for me, or maybe no, this woman came in front of his eyes and he just embraced her. And it's about embracing the person that God brings before you.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel so touched by that. I feel like That was really a word for me that you just said because
Hmm.
I feel that way a lot of times. Like I'll be 45 this month,
Hmm.
and I've always wanted children, and I feel like now I'm kind of like at the point like, I'm too old, but I mean, I feel like what you just said, like maybe I'm the one that's giving myself a cutoff date. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah,
Because
you haven't hit 90 yet.
yeah,
You'll be
I
halfway
haven't,
through it.
I haven't hit that mark yet. So yeah, and it's maybe I'm just thinking about like I know my parents were older when they had me, so by the time they had me and they had their other kids, they was tired. They didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to go anywhere per se.
Hmm.
Later on in life, as I got grown, we started traveling, me and my mom, but they was tired. And I
Hmm.
just be like, I don't want to be like that. Like I want to be active and out there,
Mhm.
but I guess it's based too upon everyone's personality. You know what I'm saying? Everyone
Yeah.
is so different, but I love that love story that you just said because that's how I want my husband to be. Like I just saw her from across the room,
Okay.
Yeah.
and man, I knew that was gonna be my wife. I've heard that before,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's how I feel. That's what I want him to tell me. Hey, when I saw you, I knew you was gonna be my wife. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
gonna
some
speak that into existence.
Amen. Amen to that. Yes, and there are so many testimonies I've heard. Like they've just seen somebody across the room and God spoke to them and said, "That's your wife and that's your husband."
Mhm.
And you just know
Mhm.
when you come into the appointed time, it will just flow beautifully.
Yes, yes. Amen to that.
Yes.
For real. Yes. I wanted to talk about some of the experts that you had in your book. I
Hmm.
was reading through it, and I know that you talk about the importance of taking care of the land that God has created as well as taking care of each other.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to someone that has to deal with bitterness that they have that hinders in their heart?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bitterness, I heard this just recently about how unresolved hurt turns into bitterness. And then bitterness become eventually turns into sin because that festers and it becomes sin. So we have to know that if you are bitter, you are on the path of sin, and we don't want to be there, right? But
Right.
Mhm.
when we have unresolved hurt that's causing bitterness, the only one who can replace that is Jesus. That's the only person who can give you the solution and to help you overcome. I will give
Mhm.
an example. So, when I was very young, I mentioned this in my book too. The first crush I had, on a boy in Sunday school, um,
Mhm.
and I was like, yeah, I like him, all right. And
Mhm.
but they, like all of the Sunday school kids, they started making fun of me. I became like this laughing stock. That put
Mhm.
in me like this fear of opening myself up and saying how I
Mhm.
feel. And I went into this cycle of shame for years. Like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. And it aided to me not being confident through my young life, through the years that somebody could have pursued me. I pushed everybody away because of the fear
Mhm.
of being ridiculed.
Mhm.
And I think not a few months ago, but last year, God really spoke to me and He said, "You were a kid, you were 14. And
Mm.
at 14, your hormones are raging. And the first guy that came in front of you was this dude, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
What would and you just acted out of it. So it's not you. You did not do something. And whatever transpired, it
Mhm.
happened. But it's not on you. And that
Yeah.
really touched me. I said, you know what? I have been shaming myself for so many years that I made a fool of myself. And this guy was I don't like to say handsome or not and all of this. I think
Mhm.
every person is unique. I don't think anybody can be classified as handsome. I think every person God has created is handsome and beautiful. But
Mhm.
this kid was like buck tooth, and like he would play the guitar in front of Sunday school with his mouth open. I mean, and all of this. And I was like, really have a crush on this dude, but this is the first thing that my friends started teasing me with, because we were like polar opposites. They said, "Oh yeah, this kid in Trata, yeah, this," and they started teasing me with it. So when that happened, something woke up inside of me. Like they disturbed my sleeping person, and they disturbed it, and they put a boy in front, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is what attraction looks like. All right." So God was like, "You were young, you didn't know, and you acted out of just childhood. Like, you can't blame
Right.
yourself for things you did in your childhood, because you didn't
Right.
have the brain to process it. You didn't have
Right.
anything to think about. Like, you couldn't process your emotions, you couldn't process your thoughts. You're just like, whatever comes to your mind, you just do it.
Mhm.
So I and that's when I said, all right, I'm gonna stop blaming myself, and I'm gonna stop feeling embarrassed and carrying shame, because if there was another young kid, I would say the same thing to them. Like, stop
Yeah.
being ashamed. You're a kid. Like,
Yeah.
things happen, right? So this is where the love of God brings the solution in. What I heard from God, like, hey, you were a kid. Don't blame yourself, because your brain was not developed, and your
Yeah.
hormones just kind of dictated what you did. And that was the solution that came in, and that broke off the bitterness I carried against that kid, against myself for doing that, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
against all the shame that I carried for. I can't tell you, like, I must have carried that for, I was 14, now I'm 38. I must have carried it at least till I was 36. So like 22 years, a
Wow.
lot of time. Um, but you know what?
Yeah.
Jesus's love can come in, tell you the solution, and he'll
Yeah.
break it off.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So yeah. I also wanted to ask you, I know that you have that your book is for everyone. So what advice would you give someone that's divorced or widowed, those singles that are looking to find love again?
Mm.
What would you tell them?
Yeah. So for the divorce, like, I wrote it just as the Bible says. Um,
Mhm.
there's Paul writes about how when you are married to somebody, you divorce and you go and marry somebody else, it's considered adultery. And I thought about it. I was like, how? Like, they legally separated, they legally did it.
Mhm.
But God kind of spoke to me and said, the first person you make a soul tie with, you're already joined with that person. And
Mhm.
even if it's a marriage certificate, it doesn't really break off what you built in the supernatural realm in that
Mhm.
soul tie. So,
Mm.
my answer is sounds very textbook about, like, don't divorce. But you know what? Jesus came to redeem us, even though we were sinners, even though we did everything wrong. And no matter
Mhm.
whether it's the husband or the wife who's at fault, it doesn't matter. The other person deserves another chance. They
Mhm.
deserve another chance. And if the other party is already married, found somebody else, that's okay. God can heal every single one of our wounds, and He's taken our sins so far away that even He cannot see it. The Bible says that He's taken our transgressions from us as far as the east is from the west. And I explained that to myself and others as, if I look out of the window, can I see China? I cannot.
Mhm.
Same way,
Mhm.
God cannot see your sin. and
Mhm.
for those who are divorced, it's time for you to heal. Draw close to God, because He can bring the solution that can fix your wound. He can bring the band-aid, and He will help you grow and mature and heal, because we are not meant to walk around on this earth bitter. Because if we are bitter, we'll create other bitter people. But if we are
Yeah.
full of love, we will create an atmosphere of love. People love, love is contagious. Love is
Mm,
contagious. When you can show pure love the way Jesus loved us, without reservations, without judgment, without having to measure somebody if they're worth loving or not, then you can
mm,
really love in freedom. And that kind of love you can only get from God.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like everything that you're saying is so, it needs to be said. Like, I feel like it
Yeah.
needs to be talked about more, because a lot of people, they do struggle with relationships, and mending relationships because of that bitterness that's keeping them from
Mhm.
doing it. Not just romantic relationships, but
Hmm.
friendships, or mother daughter relationships, all different type of relationships. I feel like
Mhm.
would benefit from just reading this book, because a lot of chains will be broken just from
Yeah.
Yeah,
reading this book.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Thank you. Hmm.
yeah. So do you have like a favorite chapter, or like not a favorite, but maybe like one of the most important chapters in the book, or do you feel like the whole book is just has
So I have made it very easy to read by kind of breaking down into sections.
okay.
I'm looking at my table of contents because it's been a while since I read my own
Okay.
book. But I've broken it down into sections. So it's like if you open the book from anywhere, you can kind of read it. It's not something that's flowing. I've separated it into concepts. I'm a
Hmm.
very like a concept teacher, so I teach you the concept. What's behind? What does this
Okay.
really say? And
Mhm.
I think one of the most beautiful chapters I wrote, and it was totally from God. It's not something I thought about before. As I was writing, there was this story that was just flowing through my heart. I felt like there was
Mhm.
this direct connection from my heart to my fingers. My mind was I was not pre-thinking it. It was just coming out, and it is the very first chapter. He made them male and female, and it's about the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And
Mhm.
it talks about the beauty of marriage and the beauty of fellowship and a relationship, and how beautiful it is when there is no baggage, when there is no sin, when there's just God. There is this
Mhm.
beautiful man that God created out of the earth, and this beautiful woman who God created out of bone. And I think it
Yeah.
is for a reason that He created both of them with different material so that they can challenge each other, but yet mold, like, just come together into the image of God, and to know that they have been made by God Almighty. And think about, like, in the real world, you can't really expect it. But just
Mhm.
think, like, if we didn't have like all of these sorrows, these challenges, these troubles and disease and all of it, and and a man would wake up in the morning and he would say to his wife, "You are made in the image of God," and a wife would say,
Mhm.
"You are made in the image of God," and they knew the truth behind it. How beautiful would
Mhm.
that be, right? And I can
Yeah.
look, and it's not just between a husband and a wife, but I believe this is what heaven's like. People will go out of will go face to face in front of somebody and say, like, "Man, you are the image of God." And
Mhm.
that person will say that same thing to you, and both of us don't look anything like each other.
Yeah.
Mm.
But that is the image of God, and how beautiful He made us male and female for a reason, because we
Mhm.
are created for covenant. We are created for that relationship of fellowship, of coming together, not just living parallel lives, but in intermingling, and that we could blend our lives together and live and bring a difference in this world. I think there's
Yeah.
so much, as a single person, I always think, like, I would I could really welcome some help in ministry. Like, I could welcome another person. I could do so much if I had a person motivating me, because I get all of
Mhm.
these ideas. I'm telling you guys, I have all of these ideas, but I don't take half of them
Mhm.
into into
Yeah,
reality. So
that's how
I'm
we
just
are
like,
too.
Yeah.
yeah,
We the same way.
Yeah. I
We
was
have that same problem.
yeah,
yeah, I was
yeah,
just talking about that last night to somebody.
yeah. But
Yeah.
just imagine, like, hand in hand, we can accomplish so much. so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
there's a verse, I can't remember the reference off my head, but
Mhm.
it says that one person can put 10,000 to flight, and two can put a 10, I got the number wrong, but whatever it is, it's like a multiplied. Say one person can put 10 people to flight, the other 10,000. So it's like a exponential number.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's a good thing I didn't quote it. I was going to quote it wrong then. But yes, two people can do a lot more than just one person walking alone. So, pursuing relationships, not just romantic relationships, but even just our family relationships and
Mhm.
our friendships, like pursuing them is so important because in
Yeah.
isolation, we will be lost. In isolation, we crumble. We were made to fellowship, we were made to be
Yeah.
around people. And I think this
Yeah.
pandemic has really, a lot of people are in depression, a lot of people are suicidal, a lot of people
Yeah.
are struggling because we have gone into a place of isolation, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
never God's
Listen.
plan for mankind.
Mhm.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. I love your confidence, Swetha. Like, I just love your energy and just your confidence that you have just when you're talking about your book. I can
Hmm.
tell that you really live by the content that you wrote in your book, and you really
Mhm.
put your heart and soul into this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rashida.
Yeah, and you can really tell.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. That's very encouraging to hear because, I think it's every person's goal. We want to live what we profess, and
Mhm.
Yes.
to hear that from you, it's very encouraging. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're working on a second book.
Yes.
Okay, so you want to talk about that a little bit? Is it kind of on the same content or is it a little bit different?
So my second book is a little different. My second book is about leadership and how God is calling us to be leaders like Jesus. And
Mm,
it's about identifying where you can bring servant leadership in, where you can bring Jesus in. I felt like, with my first book, God is really compelling people to get into marriages, to find a person, get married. And with my second book, God is compelling people to become leaders, to go
mm,
pursue promotions, pursue leadership, pursue a
mm,
place where you are at the head and where you get to influence other people. I
mm,
had an experience at work, my previous workplace, where I was went through harassment through the manager, and I
mm,
remember just being like, this is not what true leadership is. Jesus wouldn't
mm,
treat me like this. Jesus wouldn't always find fault with me. And anyone who's in the corporate world has these performance reviews at the end of it. And in corporate, people have to write something negative just so you wouldn't qualify for a raise because the company can't afford it,
Mhm.
right? So it's like this. It's like you are sacrificed. Like, when they tell me like, oh yeah, but you didn't do this. I'm like, I just put my blood, sweat, and everything for this
Mhm.
man, and then he tells me I didn't do something. That
Mhm.
was disappointing for me. I am a words of affirmation person, and it really broke me down. And the harassment I felt, and I felt like there was one thing God spoke to me, which I almost told my manager. I wish I did because he left the company right after. But
Oh wow.
was about, true humility is not, it's very easy to bow before somebody who's your superior and to please them and to be really nice to them. But true humility comes in when you can bow and put yourself below those who work for you, from whom you cannot get anything. You cannot get anything from them, but they're looking to you. And if you can show kindness, you can show grace, and you can show true leadership and humility towards them, that is of value. And that's exactly what Jesus did. Like, he came for people whom he could get nothing from, and came and gave up everything for those people to help them reach where he is. So I
yeah.
believe that there is a time coming where Jesus is expecting reformation in the corporate world, and our workplaces, in the marketplace, where he's challenging Christians to take the image of Jesus, to take disciples of Jesus, become leaders in the marketplace. He will give you the wisdom. But when the righteous rule, the people rejoice, but under a wicked king, people will perish. For the betterment of the world, to make a change, we have to pursue leaderships. And there's a part of this book which I'm really excited as I am writing, as I'm thinking about it, as I'm writing, and God is revealing to me, is about how
Mhm.
the millennial reign of Christ is going to be, what it's going to be like, how um, government offices are going to be set up. Like, this is truly, I am amazed as this is being revealed to me, of
Mhm.
how, like, Jesus is going to come as the perfect leader, and every
Mhm.
person on this planet is going to prosper through in their own land, where they are. And that is
Mhm.
going to be like this glorious, beautiful time. And you know what? I believe that God is preparing us for that. And as
Yeah.
Mhm.
believers, we have to pursue leadership positions. And
Mhm.
my I'm not yet settled on the title of the book. I'm still kind of
Mhm.
going back and forth, but
Yeah.
the subtitle is saying, it says, um saying no to bureaucracy and yes to leadership. So that's what the book
Mm.
is about.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great because I think we've all seen someone, know someone, or even ourselves, like we know that they would be a great person in a leadership role, but they're
Mhm.
scared to step up and take that chance.
Hmm.
I know I've personally seen a lot of times people, they've been at the company for so long, they
Mhm.
know the job back and forth, but then a new person comes in because they don't want to step up and take the role. I don't want to be a boss. I don't want to be in leadership, but
Mhm.
you're training somebody else to be your boss and you already know
Mhm.
what to do. It's like you would be a great boss, but
Hmm.
then you're training this person, then they come in and they could be the worst boss ever.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I think that's a book that definitely needs to be out there. We need to step into our purpose, and a lot of times we're scared and we just sit back and we just let opportunity and life just pass us by.
Yeah.
yeah. Another thing I would like to mention, I remember talking to somebody about pursuing leadership positions, and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, we don't want, we're not living on this earth to get more money or to get more power. And these are
Mhm.
believers, right? But I said, no, you're not
Mhm.
doing it for the money or the power. You are doing it so other people will be blessed through your life and through your style
Yes.
of management, because Christ lives
Yeah.
in you, and that's going to be evident, and the people are going to rejoice. The people who report to you, they are the ones who will benefit from you standing in that place of leadership. And that
Mhm.
is the goal. It's not for, of course, like
Yeah.
management, you make more money, yeah, but you're not doing it for the
Mhm.
money. You are doing
Yeah.
it to make other people's lives better, whether they're believers or not, because we are meant
Mhm.
to be an example, and called to be great leaders.
Mhm. I agree. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
Thank
true. And
you.
I think that our podcast really is in a way like a sense of ministry, I guess,
Mhm.
because we really created our podcast to really reach other people and to learn from them and for them to learn from us.
Mhm.
So we're kind of like in a leadership role, if
Mhm.
you would say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to where we really want to teach other people, things that they might not know, getting, like you said, Swetha, having a better relationship with God, or
Mhm.
just reading more, like we're doing this book series. So just
Mhm.
um, bringing awareness to people that may not, otherwise know about it,
Mhm.
so I think it's important to have great leadership. And I hope that we are doing our best
Mhm.
of being
Yeah.
leaders as well,
Yes.
because we really do this from the heart,
Yeah.
and every day I
Mhm.
do pray that people that we see and come across, they see our heart and
Hmm.
see that we're really genuine people that really want to just help others and just educate other people. So the next book I'm definitely getting.
Thank you.
It'll
Thank you. And
I
I commend you, ladies, for just, taking the step to steward this opportunity to build this platform for yourselves. You are taking charge. You are taking charge and saying, like, I want to make good use of the influence that I can have on this earth. And every
yeah.
person
Yeah.
has a sphere of influence. And how do we steward that? And I feel like you ladies are doing a great job just stewarding this opportunity. I mean, you built this platform for yourself and you built this so that you can change lives. And that's the whole
Yeah.
point of us being here, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And wanting to do this. And if we figured it out, we want others to figure it out as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Just that act of service,
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
serving others, because this is bigger than us. Like
Yes.
we
Mhm.
wanted to get bigger, you know,
Mhm.
it's bigger than us. So
Hmm.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for that too.
yes,
You are welcome.
Yes.
yes, we appreciate that. So Swetha, I see you on, I don't know if you see it, but I see you on a bigger platform soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have a
Yeah.
lot of, a lot of things that people can benefit from and need to hear.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
agree.
Rashida. Yeah, I'm one of those shy people. Like, if there's an
I
opportunity to
can't
speak,
tell you,
I will
Shay.
blurt out everything. But me going up, I kind of hide. But I am challenging myself this year to step out,
Yeah,
just walk
Yeah.
out in boldness, because I don't want what God has sown in my heart and in my life to go to waste. It
yeah,
is
Yeah.
better for it to come out and influence
Mhm.
other people, and they will be able to share their stories with others, and those others will share it with others, and
yeah,
there can be this trickle effect. And when we make a difference, when we can change lives, our life is truly meaningful. Even when I talk to some any young person and they're really sad, and I say, and I'm able to bring a solution to them, when I'm able to speak life into them, when I'm able to encourage them, and their whole demeanor changes, their face is lit up now, and
yeah.
they go about their way. Think about the other 10 people that they will be able to do the same exact thing that I did for them,
Mhm.
that they will be able to do it to others. What a beautiful planet this would be.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Yes.
like, you ask anybody, they're like, what do you want? People who are non-Christian or
Yeah.
non-believers, they'll say world peace. Well, how do you get there?
Mhm.
How do you get to world
Yeah,
peace?
Right.
By
Yeah.
influencing one another. And if we're all on the same page, and we can have different stories, we can have different ideas of how to go about it, but as long as we stay to the truth, the core of us
yeah,
sticks to the truth about how you do it doesn't matter, but what is
Mhm.
the change you are bringing? Like, what is the what is it, MVP, or like the product, the minimum viable product? Yeah, the minimum viable
Mhm.
product of your life. What is that? And I
Mhm.
think that's bringing a difference, like bringing a change, making a difference. That should be our MVP. And I think, like, it brings me satisfaction when
Mhm.
I see that I've changed
yeah,
somebody's day. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that really gives me confidence. I feel better about myself. So even if you're not
Mhm.
doing it for somebody, do it for yourself. It feels great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I love your confidence, and I feel like through the book and the more books that you write, you're gonna touch just so many people's lives.
Mhm.
Like you're gonna be that light, that ray of hope that people have been doubting themselves on,
Mhm.
and you're
Yeah.
gonna come in and they're just gonna have so much hope,
Yeah.
Thank
just
you.
from reading your book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rashida. Thank you, Nikia. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope your listeners will be blessed. I know my book is very Christian oriented, but it is for anybody. You don't have to believe in God to be encouraged, right? But
Mhm.
you can listen to my experiences, you can read about my experiences, and you can draw strength from that. And I
Yeah.
want to
Mhm.
encourage people. I don't want to see sad singles anymore. I want to see singles
Mhm.
who are happy, who are excited. I know I
Yeah.
have come to a place where I'm excited. In fact, sometimes I tell myself like, another person in my house. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I love my peace. Like I love the independence, but
Mhm.
I know that I will not get like a troublemaker in my house. There will be somebody beautiful who we will gel
Yeah.
completely, like beautiful. And I know I'm far out. My brain works much better today than 20 years ago, and I'm able to
Mhm.
process things. And I know that I have a bright future, and I want every single person to say, I have a bright future ahead of me. I am going to
Mhm.
be a mother. I'm going to be a father. I'm going to
Yes.
influence the community around me. I'm going to raise
Yeah.
godly children. And you know what? If somebody who cannot conceive, I want to say that, um, children are children. I am a big advocate for adoption.
Mhm.
I feel like, in James, in the book of James, it says that true religion is taking care of the orphaned, the widowed, um, and yeah, orphan and the widowed. And true religion meaning the practice of our faith. So the
Mhm.
true practice of our faith is when we can take care of the orphaned and the widowed, because they don't
Mm.
have
Mhm.
anybody. And I am just waiting to get married so that I can give another person a whole complete family.
Yeah.
And in God's time it will happen. If God blesses me with my own children, yay, I would still adopt. Even if I don't have children, I would still adopt. And I
Mhm.
think, as a believer, I think it's every Christian's duty to adopt, to take care of the orphans, and to take care of the widowed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Yes. I love it. I
Yes.
really love it. So,
Mhm.
Swetha, can you let us know, let our listeners know where they can purchase the book, and if you have any social media that they want to follow you or get some more information about when your next book is coming out?
Yes, so I am in the process of creating like a social media, like on Instagram, which
Uh,
is not my personal account. I'm still in the
Mhm.
process of doing that, guys, but you can purchase my book on He Who Finds a Wife, the book.com. He Who Finds a
okay.
Wife, the book. Even if you Google it, it's on Amazon. You'll find it Barnes and Nobles. You just need to kind of type my name, Shweta Sagar, because there's another book with the same name written by another man. But I
Mhm.
felt very strongly to call my book, title my book He Who Finds a Wife. Though there was another book with the same title, I
Mhm.
felt in my spirit that this is the name that God gave it, and that's what I need to name it.
Mhm.
So yeah, so just look for He Who Finds a Wife, considering marriage in a world of compelling reasons not to.
All
Okay.
right.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
And I'll
Thank you
I'll
so
hold it
much.
up. I'll hold it up so they can see if anyone's watching the video. So it's a
Okay.
book with two
Yeah.
people holding hands. My cousin,
Mhm.
Cheryl Pareji, she took this picture. She's a great graphic designer, so I trusted her. I said,
Oh,
Yeah.
in
wow.
all of the world, I want you to do mine. I didn't even give that opportunity to the publisher. I'm sure they have great technicians and designers, but
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
cousin did such a great job. And just so please do get my book. You can find it on Amazon too. Just make sure
Yeah.
you type my name, Shweta Sagar, and
Mhm.
I hope it really blesses you. One of the things I think, at the end, I have these declarations for yourself as a man, as a woman, and as a
Mhm.
person, and to just speak those out loud and to affirm who you are. I said
Mhm.
adds value to your identity, helps you realize
Yeah.
who you are, and I want to let you guys know you are not alone. We're all in this
Mhm.
together, and we're gonna hold hands and go forward.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. We really, really enjoyed you.
Yes, I
Thank
love the
you.
conversation. I learned something today myself. And I just hope that our listeners, have gained value as well from just listening to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rashida. Thank you, Nikki.
We just want to thank again Swetha Sagar, for being our guest today on today's episode. I hope that you all have gained some knowledge and wisdom from today's episode, because I know we did. Okay. Today's takeaway is gratitude is like a magnet. The more grateful you are, the more you will receive to be grateful for. From Miss Iyanla Vanzant. Okay. Gratitude. We talked about that on the episode. Humility. Being a leader.
Yeah.
And having that humility as a leader.
Yes, definitely. Yes. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure that you continue to follow us on all our social media platforms, our TikTok, Sheeta and Nikki, our Instagram, Real Conversations 21, our Facebook page, Real Conversations with Sheeta and Nikki, and of course that YouTube.
Join the family.
Yes. Hit the subscribe button, y'all. Yes.
Hit it.
And that's Sheeta, Real Conversations with Sheeta and Nikki podcast. So you can go on there. You can get your episodes 2 days earlier than when it drops on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all other media platforms. So why not? And you get a chance to see us. Thanks for watching, guys.
All right. Bye.